Welcome. This video is going to introduce you to creating a workflow in Arbor Workflows. We're going to do that. Workflow is a special type of analysis. And what we're going to do in a previous video where we created analysis to do a tree data match on a character matrix and tree. Let's use that in a one-step workflow. So we'll talk about how to do that. We'll make sure that we have an editing button here because adding new analyses does require editing capabilities to the collection that we have. We're going to create that workflow. Let's say, it's going to be, what was it? Tree and matrix match workflow. We're going to give it its own name, and we're going to say create a new workflow. And then, like we had before where we show a script, we're going to show a script except it's an empty thing, and we're going to edit it. And when you're a workflow means you get to pick things that you want to add to them. So other analyses that are already defined, you pick one, like the Geiger tree and data match, which we made in a previous video, and we're going to add this to the workflow and see what that shows the icon up here. A tree is kind of shaped like a Christmas tree. It gives you a little, top, and a table is a square or rectangular thing, so it's a table, right? So this tells us it's an algorithm that takes a tree and a table in and produces a tree and a table out. Let's instantiate the inputs here so that the algorithm knows to sort of find them. You have to instantiate the inputs so it'll ask us for a tree and a matrix to input when we run this thing. And then we know this is going to be a trimmed tree that comes out. Let's go and we're going to save this for a second. Let's go over here, turn on this access, and then now we're going to add another thing. Let's add this render a tree with ape output to the workflow here because it takes a tree in. So let's render the output of this directly. Now I'm selecting here, I'm holding my shift key down and clicking and dragging to connect these two together. So now they're connected. So I did here you could just click and click and release, it gives you the input. Here I held my shift key down and did a drag to touch it to this other one. So now we're going to be able to render this out. Remember that this creates an image. I'm just going to touch and release my mouse here to create the image output. So we did that. Now remember that this is the output of this tree is trimmed. It's a little different than the original one. So maybe we actually want to go see what the original one was too. So let's add another instance of the render with ape, and let's hold the shift down and connect it directly to the input tree. So now we have, there you go. We know that the original tree and the modified tree are both going to be created when we run this. And we want to have this output matrix too, right? So we'll just instantiate the output matrix. So this is a description of a multi-step workflow. We're going to do a tree data match in R, and then we're going to render this out, and we're going to create those images and store them in the output. And so now how we do that, we need to make sure to save, just as we defined an output before, because we've set up the connections and we've set up the instances of these algorithms. And now we can set it up and run it. So let's pick the geospatial tree and the character matrix, and we'll run it. And we ran all three of those plots, and notice that it created two different output plots and the matrix like we were expecting. So if we go down here and we can take a look, the image, here's the first and the second tree plot, and there's one of them with 25 intermediate nodes, and here's the second one with 27 intermediate nodes, right? So those are the original and the trimmed tree, and the table is right here, the out matrix. That's what came out and was saved outwards also. So here we did this one, tree and data. We created a whole workflow by going to the edit button, by creating a new analysis, going to the edit button, and then adding the analyses that we wanted to out of the catalog of other ones that are already available in Arbor, and added to the workflow. And then we wired it up by either clicking and instantiating the input or output pads, or by holding our shift key down and dragging and attaching. That would have been like from here, dragging and attaching these intermediate nodes. Then once it's done that way, you make sure to save it because it needs to remember all the topology of that connection network, and then you run it as if it was a simple analysis. This is the thing to interest, one thing of interest for reusability of science. This tree and data match here, at the point that we instantiated it, remember over here we have, I'll show you, we have this Geiger tree and data match, right? This is the script that we wrote in another video. When we implemented this, let's see, this workflow, where was it? When we implemented this workflow that we did, the where's it? Geiger tree and match workflow. This is the one we just created. There we go. Sorry about that. We instantiated this from that library. At the moment that an analysis is instantiated into a workflow, the source code of that analysis is saved with this workflow as a snapshot. So this workflow will always create repeatable results, even if you go back and change the code in the source analysis. So it's important to know that this workflow, from at the moment that you save it, it has a snapshot of the analysis as it was at the time that this workflow was created. So I hope that this has been a helpful little tutorial. Basically the idea is that we created a new analysis. It was a special type of a workflow. Remember that we can add in the types of things that are pre-installed, and which things that we find to add are a function of which of the collections that you have enabled over here, so that because every collection has some analysis or data or a combination thereof inside of them. So that's the highlights about creating a workflow in Arbor. Thank you for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.